Let's say you are playing hide and seek with your friends in a jungle. You hide and hide, going deeper and deeper into the wilderness, but no one comes to seek you out. Eventually, your friends are gone, but you remain hidden, still thinking you're playing the game. At what point would you stop and think, okay, that's probably long enough? A few hours or a day if you're really competitive. There was one Japanese soldier who had a little more patience than that. For 3 decades, every minute of Hiroo Onoda's waking reality was spent surviving in the jungle, playing the role of a soldier until Norio Suzuki convinced him to return to life. In 1974, Japanese adventurer Norio Suzuki set out on an expedition to find Lieutenant Onoda, a World War II soldier. After just 4 days on Lubang Island, Suzuki discovered Hiroo Onoda, a Japanese soldier who had been hiding in the jungle for nearly 30 years. Still believing World War II hadn't ended, Suzuki befriended Onoda and convinced him to return to Japan. But despite Norio Suzuki's efforts, Hiroo Onoda refused to surrender until his former commanding officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, personally ordered him to do so. It wasn't until Taniguchi traveled to Lubang Island in 1974 and officially relieved Onoda of his duties that he finally agreed to lay down his arms and return to Japan. The last Japanese soldier, Hiroo Onoda, was born on March 19, 1922 in Kamekawa, Wakayama Prefecture, Japan. Raised in a traditional family, he was taught the values of duty and honor from a young age. Before the war, Onoda worked for a trading company in Wuhan, China. On December 7, 1941, Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor shocked the world and pulled the United States into World War II.
That since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Hiroo Onoda was drafted into the Imperial Japanese Army in 1942 at just the age of 18. He trained at the Nakano School, learning guerrilla warfare, survival tactics, and intelligence operations. This rigorous training taught him secrecy, endurance, and firm loyalty to his mission. In December 1944, Onoda was sent to Lubang Island in the Philippines with a clear mission: to conduct guerrilla warfare. Here, he was promoted to lieutenant, and his mission was clear: never surrender and continue fighting until officially ordered to stop. But who knew that this order would define the next 30 years of Onoda's life? On Lubang Island, Onoda's mission was to destroy the Lubang airfield and to target any enemy planes or crews attempting to land. Their task was to engage in guerrilla warfare and resist the enemy. They avoided direct confrontation, using hit and run tactics to disrupt the enemy and gather intelligence. However, in 1945, American forces invaded Lubang Island, forcing Hiroo Onoda and his fellow soldiers to retreat into the jungle. Onoda's superiors promised that one day Japanese forces would come to rescue him. This hope kept Onoda and his men motivated for years. Initially, 3 soldiers stayed with Onoda: Private Yuichi Akatsu, Corporal Shoichi Shimada, and Private First Class Kinshichi Kozuka. The war was soon over, and numerous efforts were made to inform Onoda and his men. In October 1945, leaflets were dropped from the air with a surrender order from General Tomoyuki Yamashita. Onoda's group dismissed this as Allied propaganda. Isolation took a heavy psychological toll on Onoda and his men, but Private Yuichi Akatsu was not as deluded as his team members. He was the only one who sensed the war might be over, so he secretly left Hiroo Onoda's group in September 1949. His sudden disappearance worried his comrades, who thought he had been captured. After surviving alone in the jungle for 6 months, Akatsu surrendered to the Philippine Army in March 1950. This revealed to the outside world that Japanese holdouts were still on Lubang Island. Despite efforts to persuade them to surrender, Onoda and his comrade, Private First Class Kinshichi Kozuka, dismissed the news as enemy propaganda and continued their mission. And their mission was mostly survival and disrupting the lives of the local villagers. To survive, they stole rice and livestock, causing tensions to rise. They also conducted fire raids, burning the villagers' harvested rice fields, which worsened their relationship with the locals. The soldiers frequently shot at islanders to keep their hideouts secret, creating fear and leading to several fatal encounters. Numerous attempts were made to convince Hiroo Onoda and Private Kozuka to surrender, but their deep distrust kept them fighting. In February 1952, letters from their families, along with photographs, were airdropped into the jungle. These heartfelt appeals urged the soldiers to come home, but Onoda believed the letters were clever tricks by the Americans. In 1959, a large search party was sent to Lubang Island, equipped with loudspeakers to broadcast messages. They played the Japanese national anthem and familiar folk songs, hoping the sounds of home would draw the soldiers out, even when current Japanese newspapers were dropped. Onoda believed the articles had been doctored by the enemy to deceive them. The search party left and the men continued their journey. While Lubang Island was blessed with natural sources of food, surviving like this indefinitely was not sustainable. After being disrupted repeatedly, the villagers, with the support of the local police, finally took action. On October 19, 1972, Kozuka was killed during a confrontation with local police while he and Onoda were burning a village's rice silo as part of their sabotage efforts. After Kozuka's death in 1972, Onoda was left completely alone, but this did not make him want to surrender. In fact, it did the opposite. Motivated by Kozuka's death at the hands of the local police, Onoda became even more determined to fight.
小塚さんが亡くなられてから、特に山を降りようという気持ちに、その小塚さんの死が非常に大きな関係あったでしょうか。
そんなのことはそれはむしろ逆さの方向です。復讐心の方が多くなります。誰が自分の目の前で27年も8年ものがついよりもろき下のみがと申すものの倒れた時の悔しさってありませんよ。
This skepticism kept him in the jungle until 1974. Hundreds tried and failed, but Norio Suzuki, a Japanese college dropout, found him in just 4 days. How did one man succeed where so many others had failed? Whether it was due to Onoda's loneliness or Suzuki's polite Japanese dialect, Onoda was finally ready to listen to the news that Japan had lost the war and peace had reigned for years. This truth was hard to swallow for Onoda, which is why he insisted he would only surrender if his commanding officer ordered it. He finally did so when Major Yoshimi Taniguchi arrived in the Philippines and formally relieved him of his duty. When Onoda returned to Japan in 1974, he was greeted by a cheering crowd of up to 8,000 people, with the event broadcast live on NHK. Onoda's return highlighted traditional virtues like bravery, loyalty, pride, and commitment, reminding Japan of its wartime values. Returning to society after living in isolation for 3 decades was overwhelming for Onoda. So, in 1975, he moved to Brazil and became a farmer with his brother. There he met Machie Honoku, a Japanese tea ceremony instructor, and they married in 1976. Onoda eventually returned to Japan and in 1984 founded the Onoda Nature School, an educational camp to teach children survival skills and the value of nature. In 1996, Onoda returned to Lubang Island and offered a $10,000 scholarship to the local school as a gesture of goodwill. Onoda split his time between Japan and Brazil until his death on January 16, 2014 in Tokyo. He passed away from heart failure, leaving behind a legacy of incredible resilience and an extraordinary tale of survival. While Onoda's story is one of loyalty and commitment, he was not the only soldier who struggled to believe the war had ended. Many Japanese soldiers continued fighting long after Japan's surrender. In 1951, 21 soldiers were captured on the island of Anatahan. Teruo Nakamura, a Taiwanese-Japanese soldier, survived 29 years in the jungle on Morotai, Indonesia. Shoichi Yokoi hid in the Guam jungle until 1972, knowing the war was over, but too scared to surrender. The difference is that other Japanese holdouts found ways to live in the formerly occupied country, and some even started families. Onoda, however, refused to live in collaboration with the inhabitants of Lubang. How would Onoda's story have ended without Suzuki's help? Could he have survived longer? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. They have been repaid many-fold, and the end is not yet.